Airport Residency Estate is a gated community located in Olyundum, proudly developed by Swami India, perfect for all looking for a quiet life with luxury amenities within an enclosed setting. When talking about the benefits of living in a gated community, safety and security is top on the list. They allow extra privacy, take away the hustle of unwelcome solicitors, and create a safe haven for children to play in a trusted environment without traffic or speedy vehicles. A great sense of community develops through the meeting at a controlled communal leisure facilities, offering an integrated lifestyle. A green environment and well-managed communal areas are keys to higher home standards, elevated quality of life, and better property value should you consider home reinvestment in the future. Added to all is the location, just next to the airport and reconstructed main road, yet tucked in the tranquility of nature. Our purpose is one, your satisfaction. Contact us. Let us help you build your dream home in the Gambia.
This season on Kerr Fatou.
The reason I have always called for a national dialogue is because a government must be responsive to the needs of its people.
Fatou.
Tell you one thing, if me as an individual, if I know that there is somebody that I definitely wrong, I will be bold enough. I will go to the person. I will appeal to him and apologize him.
Make decision today because I don't make decisions lightly. I investigate, I do my research, I get the facts, I call the experts, I summon meetings, I get the technician, then I reflect and I make a decision.
Why did you lose the election?
Well, we lost the election because of kidnap registration. We had evidence of people being registered before the opening of registration.
and welcome to another edition of our show. It's another Thursday, and of course, I am broadcasting live from our studios at Tranquil, and I will be joined by co-panelists, one from the Gambia, and of course, two others, one from the United States, and Madi Jawate, of course, will be joining us all the way from Europe. Today, we'll be talking about the political situation in Senegal and what role is the Gambia supposed to play. Is Gambia playing any role, if at all? And of course, what are some of the consequences if anything escalates in Senegal? What would be the consequences it can cause for our country? But of course, in 2016, Senegal took a very big role when the Gambia was in something like this. And people like Juka Cisse, who were in the struggle, should be able to tell us the kind of support the Senegalese people gave to the Gambian people in a situation like that. And to join me on the studio today, of course, to join me on the show, I have activist Madi Jawate, human rights activist Madi Jawate. Madi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I can't believe I'm sharing. I can't believe we're sharing a platform. I miss this. Like talking to Madi, right? Everybody should. I'm happy.
Well, great to be here. Great platform.
Great.
Honestly.
Great. Of course, Juka Cisse. Juka is the co-founder of Paromos Go 2026, and she has been in the Gambian struggle for the longest. I don't know for how long, and she continues to do it. I don't know how they do it. I keep saying it. Juka, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Fatou. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your platform.
And of course, our own Nene Frida Gomez. You know her. I don't have to introduce her. Co-host on the Grand Bantaba. Nene, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Fatou. Thank you.
I see you having your bracelet. I don't have mine today, so we'll be sharing yours.
Yes.
And of course, today, Madi, we'll be talking about the political situation in Senegal. Just like I've said, at the beginning of the show, in 2026, when Gambia went through what we went through, the impasse, it was the Senegalese people, the Senegalese government, with the leadership of President Macky Sall, that led the fight and took it to the United Nations and got the resolution passed. And, Macky Sall hosted our president in Senegal. Our president was sworn in Senegal, and Senegal stood by us. The economic was deployed, but the Senegalese forces took center stage. As we speak, we have Senegalese security forces in our state house, helping to secure our state house and our president. So our relationships have always been a very good and cordial one since the change of government. First, let's look at what is your observation to what is happening in Senegal, Madi?
Thanks. Talking about our relation with Senegal, referencing the 2016-17 situation, one can even rewind back to 1981, when Senegal helped to put down the rebel incursion that we experienced in 1981. That's on the political side. I mean, of course, socio-culturally, we don't even need to talk about how close and related we are. But the situation in Senegal, I think it's very serious because we must recognize the profile of Senegal. Probably it is the best or the strongest democracy we have in West Africa and among the best in Africa. That is, if you compare it to Botswana or Seychelles or Mauritius, those islands. But Senegal, early 2000, saw a peaceful transfer of power from Abdou Diouf to Wade, and we can even go back to 1980 to see a peaceful transfer of power from Senghor to Abdou Diouf, and Abdou Diouf, to a large extent, presided over democratic dispensation. That is an open society, strong civil society, political parties, and so on. It was possible for Wade to take over in 2000. And, since then, Senegal has been renowned for its open society, strong civil and political rights environment, with all the challenges. When you compare to the rest of West Africa, Ghana, was a military rule, because we got referred to Ghana in 1992, when Rawlings eventually succumbed to constitutional rule. But that is by the time also countries like the Gambia were going into dictatorship in 1994. At a time when all other countries around West Africa are particularly under military rule or in civil wars, like Sierra Leone, or others still persist, Mali, and so on. So since then, we saw how Watt attempted to eventually subvert the constitution, the will of the people, to claim a third term in 2011. And I know Maki, who used to be a mayor in the Senegalese town of Fatick, as a young politician, technocrat, was with Watt to fight Abdou Diouf, to remove him and continue with the PDS party. And so by the time we got to 2011, when they had split because of Watt's attempts to change the constitution, I'm sure folks can remember this movement, M23, which emerged in, in reaction to Watt's attempt in 2011 June to change the constitution to remove absolute majority to 25% majority. That if a candidate wins 25%, you are qualified to be declared a president. All right. And so I remember myself during the period towards the end of Watt's second term, at a time when the Constitutional Council again became an issue in terms of validating the candidates. I was in Dakar end of 2011, November, December to January 2011, standing in L'Obelisk. Dakar has, in the center of Dakar, is a place called L'Obelisk, like a national square. I was standing in L'Obelisk with, Macky Sall, with Mustafa Niasse, with all the politicians at the time, with the civil society leaders, Amokodu Jove, Ali Utin, and people like, Ahmad Dansoko, and so on, protested Watt's attempt to submit his name for a third term, a third run, and all waiting. It must be January 27, 28. It was a Friday. People didn't even go to pray Friday in the mosque. We prayed in the grounds there, to make sure Watt did not stand. But of course, the Constitutional Council validated his candidature. And so when that happened, what did Macky Sall do? And, particularly, he did not wait to go to court, to go to the parliament, to do anything. He just kicked off with his campaign. He left the square, went on his campaign. And I'm happy when I saw today Guy Marissanyang doing the same. That, look, we are just going to campaign for February 25th. So what is happening in Senegal over the past few years, particularly, Macky flip-flopping one, and then the pressure by the Senegalese made him to come and declare that he's not going to stand for a third term. But of course, that wasn't the end of his schemes. His end goal really is to entrench himself in power or get a replacement that would secure his back. Because the point is, all of this is because Macky himself and his government is corrupt, seriously corrupt. And so at the end of the day, they just want to save their own skins when they leave office. And that is the problem with African presidents. That's how they become dictators. Because when you are corrupt, and corruption is in the heart of human rights violations. Any human rights violation you hear a government do, at the heart of it is corruption. So when you are corrupt, you will get resistance, you will get exposure, you will be confronted by activists, by fellow politicians, by citizens, and the next step is to clamp down on them. Arbitrary arrest, detention, torture, executions. And so when that gets to a particular point, that is the point of no return. You realize at the end of the day, for my corruption to secure my, not only the wealth I have accumulated, but also to save myself from persecution and so on. And therefore, I need to keep power. That's how we have dictatorship. You get to a point, you realize that it's a matter of survival. I have to keep this power. Or if I have to go, in Maki's case, I have to get someone to replace me. So what is happening in Senegal right now, I think is very serious. The opposition is determined, the civil society, the generality of Senegalese citizens, that they are going to have their election on February 25th. And we are seeing a change in tone from ECOWAS and some, across Africa, if not by the AU and African leaders, but a number of prominent voices in Africa. Certainly, in the West as well, we are seeing a change in tone. So it is very obvious to Maki that he has to find a solution. But being a great manipulator, we can see now he's saying we will release some of the detainees, we'll give them amnesty. Why do you give amnesty to political prisoners? I mean, you give amnesty to criminals, not political prisoners, right? But these are the things he is going to do. But time is not there. And I hope ECOWAS, but particularly Senegalese citizens, will take responsibility, and manage this so that he does not push the country into more conflict, particularly to experience a coup d'etat. So what is happening in Senegal is very, very serious. So far, I think a number of deaths have happened, a number of injuries, damages to property, and life in general is, there's huge uncertainty, anxiety, and disruptions. And so the cost of this is just amazing. So it's a serious matter down there.
It's a serious matter. Juka, being somebody who fought for dictatorship, somebody who has been in the forefront of fighting against dictatorship for the past years, of course, we had our own share. When you look at what Madi put on, what Madi just put out for us, is this: this was a leader from 2021, was hell-bent on, even from the beginning of his term. First, he started with Karim Wade, came with a decree where Karim was jailed. A lot of people said, yes, Karim and his people were corrupt, but the way that that commission was set up itself was just targeting Karim, because obviously he was going to be his next opponent. And then, of course, what we saw, he went to Khalifa Saleh, who was a very powerful mayor then of Dakar. He was also sentenced, accused of case noir. We all know it's common in Senegal. Of course, after that, what we saw was clamping on Ousmane Sonko, who in 2019, for the first time when he went on election, 15% of the votes. And a lot of people said, this is somebody you should watch out. He was position as somebody who was working at the customs department, and later on, he became one of the most critical voices in the Senegalese opposition camp. At some point, people started calling him, obviously by numbers, the leader of the opposition. Today, as we speak, over 1,800 political prisoners are in jail. Ousmane Sonko is in jail with almost half of his party's executive. His party has been dissolved. His other executive members who are out are all going through judicial control. And all of this happened, and ECOWAS had never issued a statement. And a lot of people kept saying, this is a time bomb, and ECOWAS should be issuing statements on this situation before it gets here. And as we speak today, because Maki and his people thought PASTEF as a party should never participate in the election, when the Constitutional Court approved Bassirou Diomaye's candidature, a lot of people said this, they saw this coming. Maki will never allow PASTEF to take part, especially when, Ousmane released a video about, endorsing Diomaye and, going into the election. He moved the campaign, he postponed the election. What is your observation as to what has been happening in Senegal for the past 3 years?
Yeah, Fatou, I think you outlined it pretty well. If you look at the trend from the onset, let's say from Karim Wade, Khalifa Saleh, those are all small trends that should have shown the world, right? That Maki is in a very his intention is to be a dictator in Senegal. For me, there's no one in this world that can actually erase that out of my mind because of all of the steps that he's taken, right, from, let's say, 3 years ago. He may have even been standing as a dictator long before that, right? But for us, as far as we know, when you start to jail your opposition leaders, when you start to, control the narrative in the media, right? Because if you look at the Senegalese media, very few of them speak for the voices of the people. Most of them pretend nothing is happening in that country. But as you said, with Karim and let's say, what is his name again? Khalifa Sallah. Yeah, and then Sonko, if you look at that, those are all political leaders, right? But then now, I think the world is watching and paying more of a close attention because now it's beyond the political leaders, but it should have been with the political leaders, right? But now he's actually stifling and trying to change their constitution because according to Associated Press, in Senegal, the only time the constitution allows for the election to be postponed is if one of the candidates that's already standing to be an elected opposition party or elected as a president in Senegal withdraws his candidacy or is sick or faces death or he's dead. Those are the only circumstances an election can be postponed in Senegal, according to their constitution, from what I read from Associated Press. Yeah. So that for me, to know that Macky has actually decided to postpone the election, I think the whole of the international community saw that as a major threat, when in fact they should have seen the signs. But Macky is really smart. The way, I don't know who his PR people that surrounds him are, but they are very calculative. The way he measures things and the way he communicates with the international community, right? Because the international community have pictured Macky and placed Macky to be very democratic, and all of us throughout the years, right? But at some point, for me, like I always say, it's not what I believe you to be, but it's what you show me at that particular point. All these actions leading up to this should have shown the international community that Macky Sall, he's definitely not democratic, and we should believe it as for what he shows us. When somebody shows you who he is or who she is, you must believe it. You cannot continue to give him excuse. And I think a lot of people, including the international community, have given Macky so many excuses, leading to this point where now it's catastrophic and they cannot hold back. They have to speak, because once you pretty much, it's a coup against the constitution. And when you cannot have the constitution to dictate what happens in that country can no longer be a democratic country. It's impossible. So therefore, they are forced to speak. And that's why they are speaking. That's why ECOWAS is also speaking. And I believe ECOWAS is speaking because EU, America, the US, all of them are putting pressure on ECOWAS to speak. And that's why they're speaking now. Because if you look at it, this is the only time now that you see all the international media houses writing and highlighting. And in 1 week, the United States have spoke about a Senegal situation at least twice. Yeah. So I think that they should have spoke earlier, but I'm glad they are speaking, and I hope Macky listens to them and do the right thing. He must have the elections. He must allow the elections to be conducted on the 25th of February.
Nene, when Macky dissolved the Senate, that's the body, it's like the IEC that is supposed to conduct election, just because they have asked the Director General to give Ousmane Sonko the fish, the form, the election form. When he dissolved that, we didn't see any reaction from the international community. Just like Joka said, oh yes, because he's a political leader and he's having legal issues. When Macky's government defied 2 court orders, when the judge in Ziguinchor said Ousmane should be put back into the electoral roll, they defied it. They went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court sent it back to a Dakar court and said any decision that comes from the Dakar court should be implemented. They defied it again. And you could see the blatant way government itself is defying institutions under them. If the court orders, and this was a government that was saying they will not allow Usman Sonko because Usman is always violating the laws. He's always saying the judges are corrupt. He's saying all of these things. But when you see government doing that, and there was no reaction from the international community, now we have seen, just like Juka said, we have seen the international community obviously reacting to what is happening. But do you think this pressure is enough? Because there are even rumors that Maki might dissolve the constitutional court, because now, what that does is to just paralyze the entire system. This is the only competent institution that can decide whether Macky Sall, the law that was passed in the National Assembly, is constitutional or not. Of course, the MPs have challenged it, the candidates have challenged it, and we await the decision of the Constitutional Court. But a lot of people said he might even dissolve them if he knows they are leaning towards canceling that law. Do you think the pressure that is coming from the international community as we speak is enough to get Macky Sall out April 2nd?
Thank you very much, Fatou, for that brilliant question, and you put it in a very, very good way. But before I even delve into elaborate more on my answer, I am going to say outright no. There is no enough pressure that that is needed for Macky to act accordingly. We all know Macky is defiant. We all know we don't have to go to the history where it started. Madi has put it well. I mean, you yourself, you have outlined it well before you gave your book on the floor, from where we started, and we know all the games that he uses, and now we see that he even uses the legal means to twitch it to get his way out. Now it's left to the international, community to come on board and say to him, enough is enough. The danger here is they're just going to allow him to do whatever he's going to do. And that at some point in time, whatever he's doing, even though it's not good, but he's going to illegally change the laws to be able to legally effect all the things that he wants to do. That's what we're going to see at the end of the day. And I don't think he should be allowed to get to that stage. Like you said, he might dissolve the Constitutional Court. If he dissolves it, so now that is the highest arbiter, right? If he dissolves that, then where else will the opposition fall back on? Where are they going to go to in regard to? Because all these things boils down to the Constitution. The Constitution is the highest, rule of law that any country can use. Now you have the courts. The courts is the highest arbiter of the rule of law. Now, I mean, I'm not even talking about the National Assembly, because dictators are very smart, right? I mean, or do I say wise? They're very wise the way they go about things. You bring people to surround the people who you know that you can more control them. And I mean, in my local language, I would say, because so when you have those people in all areas around you, now you use them. When you use them, you now go and go after the National Assembly. If you're able to corrupt their minds, to be able to pass laws that are going to favor you and entrench you, you conquer that place. Now you move to the judiciary, the rule of law, the judges and everybody, and start to change all those laws and make sure that whatever the National Assembly does illegally, when they bring it to them, they can allow it. Then you get all arms, right? And in that way, you are so powerful that you can put in place everything that you want to put in place. And we see Macky doing that gradually and hopefully getting that. And that is why it's very, very important. Because right now, the Senegalese people have done so much. I mean, the genuine patriotic Senegalese people have done so much to be understanding and saying no to those things. But it takes the international organization, like the ECOWAS. I mean, they spoke the last time, massaging Macky's ego. All of a sudden, a day or two, they came back with a much more stronger statement. I wouldn't call it strong, but a little bit strong statement than the one they first issued, right? Since then, what have they done? People need to see action to be able to have trust and confidence in them. That, they are the body that they can oversee when things like this happen. And the masses, the majority of the population of a country get up and say, we are being choked and we are in the verge of dying. Don't wait until we die. You start providing graves or coffins to put us. No, save us at a time that you can save us. And that's where Senegal is right now. And there should be more pressure, not only international community, but every human being, no matter where you are, as far as you're a human being in a country and you against human rights violation, dictatorship, injustice, everybody should speak up.
Yeah.
Madi, when Nene thinks there isn't enough pressure, I think they could do more, especially when they start talking about sanctions. African leaders will not move until you tell them, we're going to take your house in the US. We're going to make sure you don't go to the United States. That's the time their kids will tell them, hey, Daddy, it's time to pack. I think those are some of the languages they should start, looking at when it comes to Maki. But I watched Aliutin, one of the mediators, one of the guys who spoke to Maki recently. He was talking about the negotiation that Maki actually initiated. He called Aliutin and Atepa, though he wants to negotiate with Usman Sonko. But listening to him, there were a few things that I picked up from his interview. He talked about how Maki was concerned, that Maki wants assurance. Assurance of what? He was also talking about how, African leaders don't want to leave power, but they're scared, they're worried. But from what I got from that interview is Maki is worried. He knows that he's getting isolated. He knows that the elections, I'm not sure if they will be held in February 25th, but they're definitely not going to be held in December. It will be much earlier because the world is putting a lot of pressure on him. Do you think the pressure is enough? But also, as a country, the Gambia, first let's look at the pressure that is coming from the international community. Do you think Maki will be able to stand it, or do you think he will move on and let go April 2nd?
Yeah, I don't think he can stand even the domestic pressure, which is stronger. The international pressure, I agree with Nene, it's not strong enough. Yes, I know the US said the Secretary of State had a phone call with Maki. But when one understands the position of Senegal in West Africa, in Africa, the profile status that it has obtained, then you begin to understand the gravity of Maki's decision and the implications of that, because Maki has brought a whole new novelty, innovation on constitutional change of government. Yajame rejected election results, which we've seen happen in many other places. We've seen military coups. We've seen sham referendums like Ouattara did in Ivory Coast, and Alpha Conde, change the term limit. But to have an election postponed just on the eve of the election, that is an innovation that Maki brought. And that seems to be, a more difficult thing to handle because election hasn't been held yet. So in most likely case, you are going to get an extension, because the crisis will be such that you say, no, but 25th also is too close. People will not be prepared, so we can push it. Yeah. So when one understands the meaning of what Maki did, we will realize that the international community should have come with a far stronger force, against him. For example, I would have thought if ECOWAS itself, the ECOWAS, and here, when we talk about ECOWAS, we have two bodies. You have the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State, whose president or chairman is President Tinubu of Nigeria. Yeah. And then you have the ECOWAS Commission, which is the secretariat of ECOWAS, which is headed by Dr. Omar Toure, who is incidentally a Gambian. Yeah. Now, these two bodies are very important. And for me, the most important body, in fact, is the commission. Now, to indicate whether a stronger force has been exerted would have shown that if within 72 hours, at least, even 48 hours, President Tinubu flies down to Dakar to tell Maki, no. This is not the place. Within 72 hours to see Dr. Omar Toure fly to Dakar and tell Maki, no, this is not the way. But that did not happen. Even to see the AU come down to Dakar knowing that, if this should pass, and, right now we are seeing the violence that is, erupting, simmering in Dakar. If, that we need to prevent this, we cannot afford another conflict, in Africa, in an African country. So for me, the international pressure is not that hard enough. Of course, one would have thought France itself. Macron, we've not had Macron call.
He has not even made a statement. It's just the embassy that issued something.
Yeah. So one would have thought, if France is interested in African stability, in democracy in Africa, the West as a whole, the EU and the US, if they are truly interested in that, you would have seen calls from Brussels, from Paris to Dakar.
But would you think? But Madi, would you ever see something like that from Paris? Considering Senegal is the only country that they're left with in the region, because they have lost Mali and Burkina Faso, and they're holding so tight to Senegal for their own political interests. At this point, that is what they're protecting. The National Assembly have passed resolutions against Macky recently, but the presidency itself have not issued any statement regarding Macky's decision.
Yeah, so that is the other aspect of the West, the double standards and the hypocrisy, of course, to protect their interest. So in one sense, one can say, certainly such a call would not come from Paris or Brussels or from Washington, at the highest level. All right. And that would indicate, therefore, the necessary pressure has not been put on Macky as it is. And certainly, as I said, not in Africa. So which means, whether Macky would survive this, I think would largely, first and foremost, depend on the steadfastness of the Senegalese opposition and civil society and Senegalese citizens in general. And so far, we are seeing the intellectuals, the students, the civil society, the political parties really mobilizing. And so Macky would attempt to appease, and I don't think we need to treat Macky with kid's glove. Certainly. And I hope activists like Alioune would not buy into the manipulation, into the sweet talk of Macky, but to tell him very clearly, you stood your ground to make sure the Gambia democracy prevails. You mobilized the West Africans, you mobilized Africans, and you became the focal point. And so at this point, you cannot be seen to do something even worse than what Yahya Jammeh did. So we need to be very careful of his manipulation. And when you look at it all, there is absolutely no excuse, for Macky to prolong his stay or to explain what is happening. It is entirely, squarely about someone who just does not want to leave power. For reasons that he knows, that we all know. Now, individual countries are also not exactly necessarily present with the Gambia. I have not seen a Gambia government statement. All right.
That's what I was coming
to. Yeah, I've not seen a Gambia government statement. And I think for many, many reasons, Gambia government should have issued a statement, should have spoken, our president, not just to speak, but to fly to Dakar, not to sit and watch, and try to think what could happen, what would happen, or even to say how do you give space and to Macky to manage himself. No, Gambia should have been one of the first countries to raise this issue, not only to visit Dakar, to call Dakar, but Gambia can trigger an ECOWAS extraordinary session on Senegal, as a member state, that look, this is a matter that we need to discuss. All right. And which is very necessary, given not just Senegal, Guinea-Bissau is very unstable. We have a president there who sits down and dissolves the parliament, just like that. All right. Already we have 4 countries that under military rule. All right. As it is right now, simmering tensions are in all the orders. Sierra Leone, for example, we see what is happening, with Manabio. All right. That country is not stable. And it goes on like that until Nigeria. So therefore, if something like this should emerge in Senegal, I think each and every ECOWAS member state had a responsibility to trigger an extraordinary session on Senegal, all right, to fly to Dakar, all right, but above all for the ECOWAS president and the ECOWAS chair to engage directly. Now, all of this has not happened. And so what is happening once more, Fatou, in West Africa, is how we all sit in broad daylight in front of our eyes. We see people elected, given mandate to the people, mandate by the people. They swear to their constitutions, heading governments that have signed ECOWAS protocols, that they submit themselves to certain obligations, but turn around to flout all of these things, and we try to understand them, we try to second guess them, we try to excuse them, we try to explain them. Meantime, we see the country sliding into violence, and then there is a civil war or a coup d'etat or general disruption, and then we get into a firefighting situation. Now, I made this point today in a forum I was in earlier today about ECOWAS. I recall, because ECOWAS, and I made this point, all of us West Africans need to read the protocols of ECOWAS. The protocols of ECOWAS are very simple to understand. They are very clear and they are very progressive. So ECOWAS cannot claim ignorance of what is happening in Senegal, because by the protocol on elections, democracy, and good governance, all the processes, all the institutions, all the obligations are clearly set out, so that ECOWAS cannot claim not to know what is happening in each and every West African country. For example, the protocol is saying 6 months before elections, ECOWAS should send early election observers to a particular country to not only see the government, but see all stakeholders, to get to understand, to get all the issues surrounding the election, to report that to the commission, so the commission can see what support to give to that country. So if ECOWAS had done that, they would have seen this. But even before that, the protocol gives clear obligations about how each and every member state should ensure democracy, good governance, protection of human rights, how to make sure the military, the security are not politicized, how to make sure citizens, even in schools, to provide education, civic education in schools. So the whole intention of the ECOWAS treaty and its protocols is to create a democratic dispensation. So ECOWAS should know what is happening in each and every African country. Nothing should surprise them. But I made the point that in 2011, we sat in the Gambia. I remember at Tango receiving a communique from ECOWAS saying ECOWAS Commission is not going to observe the Gambia elections because the playing field is not level, and catalog a number of things that malpractices of the regime at the time. And I was very furious. I said, but ECOWAS, Gambia is a member state. Gambian citizens are members of ECOWAS. You owe us a responsibility. By our membership, by our citizenship of ECOWAS, to make sure you engage our government, that our country, you support it based on your own treaty and protocols. You cannot sit here because of a regime is this or that. That you know already, and you abandon us at the 11th hour. And for me, therefore, the impasse that came to happen in 2016, 2017, we blame Jammeh, but I blame ECOWAS quietly, because ECOWAS, whether you know it or not, every day and every week, ECOWAS has a department called Early Warning Department. They receive alerts, information on the social, economic, and the political situation of every West African country every week. Every week. I can tell you, as a civil society monitor at that time, between 2005 until 2012 or 13, I was providing on a weekly basis through an ECOWAS checklist reports on the situation on the Gambia to ECOWAS headquarters every week. And any incident that happened in the Gambia, every day, any day, I reported to ECOWAS. So as I was doing in the Gambia, others were doing, I ended doing that. Somebody is doing that in the Gambia as we speak right now, in Senegal, in Guinea-Bissau, in Nigeria. So ECOWAS knows what is happening in each and every African country. So for me, really, I think West African citizens like you and me, we need to begin to hold ECOWAS to account. I think the ECOWAS Commission is incompetent, inefficient, and it is high time we tell them that the Commission is responsible for monitoring member states in their compliance with the ECOWAS protocols. They are supposed to provide capacity building support to the governments to, make sure they abide by these protocols. They are supposed to support member countries to uphold democracy and good governance, and so on. So the ECOWAS Commission, for me, is the critical issue here. They are the ones who should provide the advice, the guidance to the authority of the heads of state, like to President Tinubu right now, that look, you are decision makers, we are the technocrats, the technicians, on top of these things. This is our advice. Put Macky Sall on notice. If he fails to make sure election takes place in 25th February, give him targeted sanctions, himself, his wife, his people in the parliament, his people in the cabinet, his political parties, give them targeted sanctions, travel sanctions, assets freeze, and things like that. These are the things I expect Dr. Omar Toure to tell Tinubu and the authority of heads of state that for once, West Africa has to have democracy. I mean, since 1975, ECOWAS was formed. Today, West Africa is the most unequal region in West Africa. In Africa. It's the most violent region in West Africa. It's the poorest region in Africa. As we speak, hundreds of Senegalese youths die in the high seas, in the Sahara Desert, running away from Senegal to seek greener pastures elsewhere, whilst people like Macky Sall sit at the helm, plundering the wealth of the country. For what? The poverty, it's just crazy. In 2011, 2021, one can check online. Oxfam, UK, published a report on Africa inequality that 1% of West Africans hold all the wealth of the 99% of West Africans. And West Africa is the most endowed country in Africa. Oil, gold, petroleum, timber, you name it. Diamonds. And then you look at the poverty, the sheer poverty and deprivation in each and every West African country. I think West Africans really need to begin to see things in the right way. And for me, it is not just our government, but we need to challenge ECOWAS, and not just the heads of state, because the heads of state are in our countries, they are our presidents, but the commission, the ECOWAS commission, that is the key. That commission, we need to hold it to account. So, say to the question, not enough international pressure is being put on Macky Sall. All right. As I think Juka mentioned, the statement that they came up with. The first statement, I was like, what? Yeah.
The comments were crazy on that. I was like, I think I even saw more Gambians than more Senegalese on that comment section.
And then the second statement. Yeah, even the second statement, which many feel okay, it's stronger than the first one.
Say enough.
Yeah, but it was too general. The commission needs to come specific with specific demands.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but you cannot just come and say we call on all the stakeholders to make sure they go back to the electoral calendar. Which stakeholders?
Juka, is ECOWAS not culpable in all of this? Because all the things that Madi have said, we have not seen enough pressure from ECOWAS. Tinubu was scheduled to go to Senegal on Monday. He canceled last minute. No other state. I haven't seen a statement even from the AU. But also, when Conakry, when Alpha Condé tried to change the constitution, ECOWAS didn't say anything. When the military tried to take over, even before it was announced that it was successful, they issued a statement.
Let me say this. That this is just quite candidly. This is what I always thought about ECOWAS. You can prove me wrong. For me, I look at it as a body that's there to protect the heads of states of the African countries, West African countries. That's it. Like everything that Madi outlined here, I don't see them representing that. Every statement that they normally make is usually to benefit the heads of their look at when they talked about the coup, that they don't want coups to happen in Africa, instability. But then, like I think Mama Kande said it, you cannot tell people that we will not continue to have coups in Africa when the African leaders are actually doing a coup against their own constitutions in their countries.
Yeah.
right? So for me, the way I look at ECOWAS, I don't expect too much from them. Now, the reason why I think Gambia's situation was different is because I honestly believe is because Maki had personal issues with Jammeh, whether it was politically driven or economically driven, but there were issues between him and Jammeh. And so because of that, during that time, Maki was the leader, if I'm not mistaken, of ECOWAS, wasn't he? Madi, you can correct me.
I think maybe he was the chair, or
he was
but
the chair,
he led but he wasn't the chair at that time, but he led the fight to take our resolution to the United Nations.
But I think he had a very he was either he had just finished his term. He had just finished his term, so he was very instrumental. Yeah, so he had just finished, so he was still very instrumental in that organization, right? In ECOWAS. So he had a lot of influence, right? So for me, I think because of that, he was able to, obviously, with the help of the international community, let's say US and all these other international organizations, Human Rights Watch and all that stuff, with their pressure towards ECOWAS, and then internally, they have Maki to also echo what everybody else is saying. That's what led to Gambia, ECOWAS being involved in the, for Jammeh to leave during that time, during the impasse, right? So we were very lucky. But right now, as Madi said, we don't see any country standing up for Senegal the way Maki stood up for Gambia because of his own interests, right? That's the keyword, his interest. And that's what we need to see, but we don't see it.
But should Gambia not have a major interest in Senegal? Look, I said this. Gambia is like a room in a compound. Senegal is like the compound, and Gambia is like a room in that compound. If there's an issue in Senegal, our economy suffers.
It trickles down.
So we should protect our economy. Our port, a lot of our goods, our food stuff is coming from the Senegalese port, number one. Number two, the Senegambia, the southern region in Casamance, if there's any instability in that region, we are going to suffer because we are one and the same people. But also, if instability is happening in Senegal, where will they first run to? Is the Gambia. So we have a lot of interest to protect. Wouldn't that be a reason for Gambia to be the key player if something happens in Senegal? Remember, when Macky Sall announced, and this was something that I called out all these political parties, when Macky announced that he was not running for a third term, the president, the government issued, I think the president first sent a tweet, and the government issued a big statement thanking Macky for being this big Democrat, all the words you can think of, right? UDP came out a statement. I said it on my show. I just cannot believe what kind of opposition will say something like this, because this man is not doing anything extraordinary. He is just complying with the Constitution. And people say, oh no, but the fact that he wanted to do it and he didn't do it. I'm like, so why should we applaud him for that? Why should we applaud for somebody for doing their job? But yeah, they all did that. Now, the government issued a statement when this man said he was not running for a third term and congratulated him. And then he came here for the Senegal-Gambia meeting. The president echoed that and said to him, you are a Democrat, we support you, my big blah, 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 blah. What is happening?
Oh, we lost Fatou.
Any position, no position as we speak from the Gambia government. Every single day I see an email from the government spokesman. I'm like, okay, maybe that's the statement. Up till this minute, there's no statement.
If I can add this, Fatou, to your question earlier, just to reiterate what you were asking, I think it's about time for us Africans to not sit back and wait. Even beyond Gambia, Gambia has to say something. Whether it's the government, the president, the activists, we have to be involved. But I think it's about time for us Africans to start to be involved in each other's issues, political issues, just like ECOWAS, just like the presidents in the different countries have each other's back. They do. They literally have each other's interests and they have each other's back. So I think that's why all of us, all West African countries, have to start to speak together. Even if there was an issue in Mali, Gambia and Senegalese have to get involved.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody else is still here.
No, I'm here. Yes, we're here.
Yeah. So if there is a problem in Nigeria, everybody has to get involved. It must change. This generation have to understand, and we are so lucky. We were talking about this on TikTok last night. If you look at the history back then, when our great grandparents were fighting, let's say Jawara and all of these people were fighting to get us democracy in the Gambia or to gain their independence. Unfortunately, that time there was no social media. They had to, beat their drums to call each other for meetings. And as hard as that time was, if you could just picture it in your mind, they still did it. But we have the power of social media, right? We have the internet in our interest. So I think all West African countries, if there's a chaos or if there's an issue in Gambia, Senegalese have to get involved, Ghanaians have to get involved, Nigerians have to get involved. With that, we can have a volume. We can have like an enormous control and enormous influence for the world to hear us and for our country's presidents to also hear us. And it's up to us what kind of West Africa do we want? What kind of Africa do we want? Because we cannot continue for generations and generations to be running away from where we belong to go and seek greener pastures other places. Until when? I digress.
Until when?
Yeah.
Nene, Barry, you want to comment? Okay, go ahead.
No, I think it's just to buttress the point Juka has been making in terms of our leaders calling each other out. And, if let's go to Europe, for example, the EU, they have a commission. The president is one lady called Ursula von der Leyen, something like that, right? The EU Commission president. You see her speak up, to and on Macron for disagreements in terms of EU policies, EU whether it's trade or migration or other things. You would hear him address Viktor Orban in Hungary or Giorgio Meloni, in Italy, and the Germans and so on. Not to mention the fact that the various European countries, they hold each other to account. So at least for our sake, all right, that is what we require, that accountable leadership, that ethical leadership, that our leaders realize that you are not in this position for transactions, for your interest, but you are there representing a national interest, a public interest. And so you should be able to recognize what is threatening the interest of not only your country, but that is, let's say, Macky Sall, Senegal, but also threatening our countries. If there should be violence erupt or something like, a coup or happen in Senegal, it also affects Gambia and Guinea-Bissau and Mali and Guinea and Mauritania that all surround Senegal, and even further down all the way to Nigeria. But the fact that you are the leaders of this region, you bear responsibility to be ethical, to be accountable, and so to hold each other to account. Now, if that fails, then it means, what is the point of ECOWAS? Really, what is the point of us being in a sub-region and we claim to be one family? So I think our leaders are failing us very, very seriously. And that accounts for the reason why West Africa is how it is for decades. And that can't continue. So we need to have ethical leaders who are able to recognize national interests, the interest of not just only their country, but the next door neighbor, and you stand for the best interest of that next door neighbor where its leader is trying to harm them. Okay.
But then, can we realistically, can the Gambia hold Senegal accountable, considering one, our electricity is coming from Senegal, our ports, our our state house is being secured by ECOWAS, but Senegalese soldiers. Can we hold Senegal accountable for anything at this point, considering all of these things?
So when you say these things, Fad, you know what that means? It shows a very scary situation, that at the end of the day, we have governments, we have leaders who are not pursuing national interest on the basis of principles, on the basis of standards, on the basis of, their mandate, so that no country will feel so much held hostage that you cannot now speak through to that other country simply because you feel that interests are in your country. All right, and that for me is very, very concerning. How Gambia would trap itself in this situation, so that at the end of the day we cannot speak, to higher values, to higher standards, to sacred noble objectives, simply because we have tied ourselves within or with this other country. And that's all the more reason of my frustration of African leadership and ECOWAS. And it draws, pictures a very bleak future for us, because it means at the end of the day, impunity will prevail. As far as these leaders are concerned, they will never hold each other to account. Look at what Embalo did in Senegal, in Guinea-Bissau. Who came to say?
But when Maki announced that he was postponing the election, Embalo was the first person to send a tweet right after the announcement, congratulating Maki for that decision. Can you imagine?
Yeah. So it's sad. Yeah. I would suppose even a country like Nigeria, considered the big brother in West Africa, beyond and above ECOWAS, that President Buhari would realize, look, it's in the vested interest of Nigeria and the wider West Africa that peace and stability prevail on the basis of democracy, good governance, and respect for human rights. So that I will take responsibility to make sure, in each of these countries, that is the kind of dispensation that prevails. Now, if Buhari seriously believes in democracy, recognizes the terrible past of Nigeria under military dictatorships, and is committed to combating corruption and so on, why can't you be a voice? All right, why can't you be a voice as a Nigerian president? Not to even mention being a member of ECOWAS, but be a voice for anti-corruption. And again, you will find the issue of anti-corruption deep in the ECOWAS protocol on elections, democracy, and good governance. That the commission, the community that is ECOWAS, they shun corruption and recognize it as a major threat to free and fair elections and to democracy and peace and stability. So, you read the ECOWAS peace infrastructure. They have a whole, a concept about peace, building peace building in West Africa. And corruption is at the heart of it. So for me, ethical leadership is lacking in West Africa, which is the reason why we are seeing what we are seeing. And that is a threat to each and every citizen of West Africa. Because if leaders in whom we entrust our powers, our rights, we empower them with resources, with tools, they have control over the forces of violence, the military, the security, the intelligence. If those leaders are not ethical, what could potentially happen? It means, we are seeing what we are seeing in Senegal, that, you completely ignore, the noble, that sacred responsibility given to you by your people, and take a path that certainly is going to cost people their lives and future. So I think West African citizens, eventually this may come down to West African citizens and our civil society and media. All right. This kind of conversation, I know many media are doing it, but this should be a topic across West Africa for media platforms to bring this conversation so that the wider West African population get to hear other narratives other than what the official version that is coming from ECOWAS and African governments. So for me, our media and civil society, I think, like Yanamar, they should be fed up now to realize that there's no more any excuse that any African government, any African president can give, for all the violations, the corruption, the malpractices that are happening in our countries. No, there's no excuse whatsoever. And we have to put an end to this,
Well, we have to put on this. Juka, is Nene here? I think we lost her. I was talking about Nene. Okay, Nene's here. I was talking about the role. Yeah, I was talking about the role the Gambia should play. I mean, considering all the things that we have, from Senegal. But do you think we can hold Senegal accountable? We haven't seen our government take any position. Like I said, when Macky announced that he was not running that term, it was all praises. Why are we not seeing any position from the Gambia government? Is it because of all the things that Senegal is doing for the Gambia? Why do you think we haven't seen any reaction? Is anyone hearing Nene? Nene, we can hear you. Is anyone here? Nene, we can hear you. Can you check your sound? Okay, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Oh, still not.
No, we can. No, we can't hear him. We can hear her. Sorry. And then we can hear you. Madam, mute.
The phone mute, maybe.
Charles, can you check Nene? Nene, can you waxal ñu dégg la? Nene, kon da nga génn nga dugaat Nene, foog la nga génn nga dugaat nga xool sa sound bi dafa move de. If you are hearing us. So Juga, Macky gis nañ ne we have seen him grant an interview to AP, and what was more concerning during that interview was he's calling for a dialogue. He's calling on all the political parties to come and dialogue. And he said something that was really alarming. He said, for somebody who has already caused a constitutional coup, now he's saying, if you refuse to come on the table to dialogue with me, there are other forces that will take over the country. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are saying he's already calling for a coup d'etat, because what other forces will be there if not the army? That statement itself, it's treasonous.
Premeditated. Right. Oh, the network in Gambia.
If you don't come to the negotiating table, other forces will take over. What other forces? For us, for if you hear the president make those kind of statements, are you scared that this can go even way crazier than we are right now?
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. We can't measure the things the way unfolded in Gambian struggle and measure it the same way that it may unfold for Senegal, because obviously it's a larger population, 18 million people. And also, as bad as Jammeh was, Macky is also very manipulative, right? And another element is that the Senegalese people, I'm always on TikTok with them, most of them are not willing to sit back and watch Macky do whatever he wants to do. Every day you see the people protesting or burning down buildings or burning down things, the markets or whatever, right? So it's a very dangerous situation that we are all watching unfolding. And for Macky to mention another element, like I said, almost premeditated. And I've read another article apart from AP, I can't remember which platform. And some of the things that the United States must do if what Macky is calling for happens, because he's literally calling for a coup with that statement. If that happens, the United States they don't have a choice. They have to sanction Senegal, the government of Senegal. Whoever is going to be there, they have to place all of their sanctions that they must place. It's by law, they have to do it against Senegal. So it's a very dangerous situation that Macky is saying, but also it's almost like, he wants to send subliminal messages to Senegalese, but I think it's still it's still part of his tactic to manipulate the international community to come across as he's a saint, like he has the best interest of Senegal at heart. Even there was another article that just came out that called out the 3 individuals that were recently killed. And in that same article, Macky was also quoted again saying that the reason why he hasn't had the dialogue yet is because the opposition parties, the political parties need to be very vigilant because there's a lot of chaos in the country right now. So imagine that. Right? So he's very manipulative and very tactical with all of the conversation and the communication he's having with the international media. And they also have to start to look into talking to other people underground and not just interviewing few protesters that are probably not as sophisticated in their communication with the media. They really need to do a better job highlighting what's happening in Senegal instead of just highlighting what Macky is saying and allowing the whole world to believe Macky's narrative. Yeah.
Nene, it seems
can I just speak? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead, Nene. You know, you're in Senegal, Gambia. Are we able to hold Senegal considering all the things they provide for us? Before
I answer that question, let me just piggyback quickly on Juke's submission. I think it's hypocrisy if anybody sits here and claims that they're choosing to believe what Macky tells them or portraying Macky as a Democrat or a peaceful person based on what he is telling them and who he is trying to show of him. Because you know what is happening in Senegal right now? It's an open secret. It's out there. We know the number of deaths. We know the number of people who are incarcerated right now, behind bars, in prison. You know, the people who are decapacitated, wounded, all that. The proofs are there. The evidences are there. And this is one of the reasons that Macky knows. That's why he did everything possible to shut down WALF. Because WALF was the only TV that was going where nobody else was going, showing what everybody else refused to show, talking about the things and providing platform for certain people whom everybody else was trying to say, oh, no, I'm not going to give you a platform because once you come here, you're going to be speaking against Macky Sall and it doesn't serve my purpose. It's not profitable for me. Everything is out there. But then the people just choose, or some choose to just ignore and just listen to Macky and trying to say, oh, we are dialoguing with Macky. We are at the stage that nobody should be begging Macky Sall. Macky should be begging people to allow him that peace to finish up till April 2nd. But nobody should be begging Macky Sall at all. Because whatever he should have gotten, he has been given to the fullest. He has been allowed to the fullest. But even during that time, we saw how Macky has treated people of Senegalese, the Senegalese people, especially the opposition, specifically and particularly Ousmane Sonko and his support and his party member. It's unwanted, it's uncalled for, it's undemocratic, it's unhuman. It's about time we call it what it is. Macky is not democratic. Macky is not a human being. Treating people like human, and I think it's about time we meet him at that line. We meet him at that point and speak to him the same way he's speaking to people, acting the same way he's acting towards people of Senegal. That's what needs to happen. And also to come into your question, absolutely not. Absolutely, we cannot run to account considering the current atmosphere we have in Gambia, considering the current administration we have, considering the current leadership that we have. Absolutely not. It was another leadership, right? If it was another administration, of course, yes, I wouldn't give a flying fuck. I will tell you as it is. I will call it as it is, and I'm going to hold you to account. Cut everything up. Dina lu be dan dunde. Dina be yar be jur sikim. Mun na ko dunde be de. Waaye ñàkk moom suñ boppa ñàkk olu suñ boppa ñàkk am ñi nga xam ne lañ jiital pour ñu aaral ñu iiral ñu toppatoo ñu loolu mooy suñ problème ba nga xam ne dañ ñu abal bot ko fu mu nekk fu ñu wax ñu xool foofu la ñuy xool suñ ne goma leen gën goma suñ bot bi suy génnee rongoñ sax suñu ne bu leen ko fompa duñ ko fompa dañoo bàyyi mu rot ba taxaw suñ yëre waaye duñ ko fompa. And then we see a lot of that happening, not only the Gambia. Gambia is a fraction of it. But then we see bigger democracy, like we're talking about Nigeria. What is stopping the president of Nigeria? Like, why would you cancel your trip? Okay, if you cancel it, because this is an emergency, nothing should have stopped you, and you should have even planned to go earlier than you planned to go, even though even afterwards you canceled it. Because what we need to understand is, as a people, right, all we are doing, our silence, our lack of holding Maki to account is emboldening and strengthening Maki every day, every blessed day. That is what is happening. Because every time we go, every day, every week, we see Maki come up with the most heinous, with the most erratic actions, and decisions. And everybody was, what? Why are you surprised? Because we are silent, we are keeping quiet. What are we waiting for? Until Maki kills almost everybody like Yaya Jammeh did to us. Or they will wait for Maki to enter their homes, touch one of their family members, touch one of their relatives, threaten their jobs, threaten their earnings before they stand up to talk. Selfishness and self-centered, it's consuming our inner souls as a human being everywhere, not only in the Gambia. It's not. The Gambia is beginning to, I don't know, we are neutral. Why would you be neutral when you know that we are surrounded by Senegal? We can be in crisis and Senegal.
So neutral can from the beginning. Bi Macky Sall waxe do run for tatam. Gambia tweet nañ in a statement congratulate nañ ko. Comme su dé def na li tam xana nak diga
And that is the hypocrisy. Fatou, that is the hypocrisy in our nature. That is the hypocrisy here. Because like you said, why would I congratulate Macky Sall and say you're not running for third term? In the first place, it's illegal for Macky Sall to run for third term. There is no legal backing. There is nothing backing Macky Sall for him to run for third term. So why should I applaud you to say, oh, it's good that you're running for third term? I don't see that happening. So everybody that has done that, applaud Macky Sall for not taking that decision. And it's not Macky's decision. It's the people that said to him, you will step down or else we are going to come head on with you. Ain't going to happen. So it's not Macky just sitting down until I want to do it. If it's left Macky alone, Macky will be doing that job. Macky does not care. And you know what? The other thing also now come to realize is, you know what? Macky Sall is not everything else he showed the world and Senegalese and Gambians that he is. Macky has now unmasked, you know what, the power and everything else has really on the real Macky, the real person he is. That's what he has done. All he has been portraying is selfish interest. Macky just saw a fight that he could capitalize because, we all saw what Jammeh did to him. We also how defiant and head-on Jammeh was dealing with Macky. So he said, you know what? Since the Gambians have now taken on the fight, because we initiated it, Macky did not. We initiated and said to Jammeh, enough is enough. We started the fight. A lot of people died. Macky was still muted. Till when they got to a point, he realized, oh, this is the best opportunity. It's a point that I can just capitalize and run with it. Of course, we were naive. At a point, we could not recognize. We could not have done anything but to just accept him to do whatever he has done. But that doesn't warrant that we should be keeping mute. We should be neutral. It's unhuman. It's not right. We should be talking. And if the government is not saying anything else because it doesn't serve their purpose, the citizens should be talking because we were the ones that suffered most. Our people died. Our people were in exile, and some are still in exile. Their mothers died. Their fathers died. Their children died. They couldn't see them. They still haven't gotten closure. So the responsibility is on us to stand up and speak up. It is often said, every human being has the moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws, injustice, killings of people. It's a moral obligation. It's a moral duty. Nobody should accept it. Nobody should handle it. Nobody should tolerate it at all. It kills me. Honestly, it kills me. It's not done. And to be honest, we the people need to put pressure on our government, our administration to say, hey, you need to take a side on this because it's not neutral or you be quiet, which means you are siding with the oppressor. You are siding with the other people that is really treating people unjustly. And right now, I can authoritatively say that Adam Abad is citing Macky Sall's, history of injustice and killings and dictatorship because of his silence. If not, say something. Say something.
Our government is compromised. We are compromised. So like Fatou outlined earlier, right? All of the benefits, all of the things that we depend on Senegal. That's why we need to be independent. We need to be self-sufficient as a country. We cannot depend on other countries, because if you do whatever they tell you or whatever interests they have, you must have the same interest, even if it doesn't serve your like it doesn't serve your purpose. You have to have the same interest and go by what their interest is, which is what Adama Barrow and his government is doing right now. And it's really sad, because the Gambian government should also release a statement about this issue, because it's affecting Senegal, it's affecting the Gambia.
I think what Juka was saying, I don't know, we just lost Juka's video, but what Juka was saying, it's extremely important. What Nene started with and Juka was saying, because, Marty said it too. It's scary that we are relying heavily so much on Senegal on all of these issues, to a point. If Senegal goes down, we go down with them. It seems like Juka is back. So these things are really scary, because if we're relying on Senegal on all of these things, ñun buñ jotee ak Sénégal sax dañoo nangu everything, because Senegal ñoo amee suñu state house mi security wise.
But Fatou, Macky knew what he was doing when he positioned himself. He literally positioned himself in a place where he can, Adama Barrow mun na ko xool comme doomi baay lañ or whatever, right? And he may think Macky has his interest, but he doesn't. Everything Macky is doing is for his own interest and for the interest of, him governing Senegal, point blank, period. So I think for me, I don't expect anything to change from the tone with Barrow and the government, Gambia government. But I think the citizens, we have to be more empathetic and understand that what affects Senegal will also affect us, whether we like it or not. Because also, imagine if Senegal, Macky Sall, it's fine and he happens to stay there another 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just imagine that, right?
I don't know what.
Let's just imagine if Macky Sall happens.
I don't want to imagine that. I don't want to imagine that.
But let's just say, if the Senegalese people don't rise up, if the world doesn't speak, nobody does anything, and we allow Macky to continue, just like they allowed Jammeh to be there for 22 years. So what does that mean for Gambia, right? So this is our fight too, to make sure democracy is upheld in Senegal, also because we want that to be upheld in Gambia in 2026.
And economic independence. Economic independence for us is very important. It's very, very important. Yeah. Because if Macky continues like this, and Senegal continues to provide all of these things, it becomes very normal for us. But this is not a normal situation, and this is a very serious scenario. Somebody who is holding keys to our electricity, our energy sector, one of the most important sectors. Our presidency is the most sacred place for us. Our president's security should be number one prior to every Gambian. But this is in the hands of foreign security forces. And that is not, and Senegal is our closest neighbor.
We're not independent.
I don't know how anybody thinks about all of these things and go to bed, but these are things we should be worried about. Our economic independence, and we think it's okay. When I see people say ECOWAS will stay here until Barrow comes in, I'm like, are you for real? Are you for real? Are you thinking about the implications of all of these things? Senegal controlling all of these, all key sectors of our governance, our economy, and we think that is okay. We are not independent economically because of all of these things, and it is scary.
Yeah, and if I may add, lastly, this is the only. Okay, so just imagine another picture: Joe Biden at the end of his term, saying that he's not going to do a third term, and we have to clap for him, right?
Yeah.
This is there's nowhere in the world where people are sitting down having conversations about when is the election and who is supposed to be part of the election and who is not, as far as candidacy, right?
Yeah.
As far as the amount of terms that we are supposed to serve as presidents in Africa. We have to rise above that. People are talking about other factors, other things, climate change, other issues to evolve and take their countries ahead. But we are still stuck as Africans. We are still stuck talking about elections and political parties and political leaders that are supposed to govern. So we are not even talking about the things that actually will make changes in our lives as people. We are talking about things that actually will change their lives as presidents and as political parties, as candidates.
ñu ne nag dëkkandoo day wàlle de gis naa Sénégal ñoom dialogue nañ Gambia tam ñu ngi dialogue and I said this, I said, what are we dialoguing for?
Don't get
me started. Let me give the panel to somebody else. Don't get me started with that car.
Waaye xam nga lu tax kaa yi da nga bàyyi xel Macky dafa dialogue eliminate Sonko ak gaayam yi indi ñu mbuga. And now we have seen Gambia calling for a dialogue. And I'm thinking, what are we dialoguing for? Are we just copying everything Senegal does? Now, Macky is talking about appeasement. He said he wanted to have a dialogue, but most especially with Usman Sonko. He has sent people to Usman and presidents, and Usman have told them, I'm not going to negotiate with a gun in my head, right? You're a danger. If you want to release me, you know how you kept me here. If you want to release me, you know how to release me. And the negotiators, said Usman has not given any word, but Macky has promised appeasement. First, there were rumors that he was going to have an amnesty bill passed, but a lot of people, especially people from Usman's camp and the activists, came after that. Number one, over 55 people died during Macky's fight with Usman Sonko. Over 55 people died. Just yesterday, 2 days ago on Friday, 3 people died. If you add that, it's close to 60 people that has been accounted for. Official numbers. Over 1,668 people were in jail as we speak. That is excluding the 266 that were arrested last Friday. Altogether, it's about 2,000 people, political prisoners in jail. And Macky Sall promised to release all of that. As we speak, I'm looking at my phone and I'm seeing over 25 to 50 people have been released. Khalilou Fadiga has been released. All the Senegalese, all of them, the mayors, Jamil Sane, Abdoulaye Touré, all of them, Toussaint Magan. Right now, as we speak, I'm looking at my feeds. I have seen over 50 people. He has started. Now, he wants to put this amnesty bill so that I tell people, I don't think Macky is doing this for Usman Sonko.
No.
Macky is doing this for himself. Who killed those people? One of the negotiators was saying...
control. Damage control.
Yeah, one of the negotiators said when they went to visit Usman, what Usman told them was, yes, Macky said, I called out for a protest. That's why people went to the protest, and that is why they arrested me. They said I stole a phone. But I called people out to go and protest. But the people that shot them and killed them, have they been arrested? Where are they? There are two sides to this now. Macky wants an amnesty to protect himself and all the people that were involved in this, but he is using Usman and the 2,000. But it seems like that might not be the end. That might not happen because they have rejected that. Today we have seen him releasing them. Do you think, Mahdi, that is the right way? Appeasement, release all the 2,000 prisoners, release Usman, release Basiru, and then, let him stay until December 15th for elections?
Certainly not. I mean, this Usman Sonko guy, I don't know him like personally, certainly, of course. But following him, listening to him, he's a very sober guy. He's a very smart young man, So I have no doubts that at least he's one Senegalese that Macky cannot manipulate, because he has seen Macky, what he is, who he is. So I'm very okay that whatever decision or position Usman Sonko is going to take is not only going to be in his own best interest, but in the best interest of Senegal. So for me, for the rest of the Senegalese, really, particularly those who are for Senegal as their motherland, as their fatherland, committed to democracy and good governance and human rights, should reject Maki's appeasements. The word appeasement doesn't even apply here. It's not appropriate.
Okay.
What is required is justice and accountability and the rule of law. And so Maki, of course, is going to do or is doing all of this because he has committed a crime. And so things have exploded in his hands and he has to find a way to, firefight. So I think he will delay certainly justice and accountability on himself, but sooner or later it's going to happen. What the Senegalese need is to be very aware of their rights, of their duties, according to the laws of Senegal, and ensure at all times to stand on that path. Yes, some would be incarcerated, like Sonko and many others. Some have been killed, and so on. But in the end, if they stand on that path of the law, of patriotism, eventually Maki would have to face justice. At the end of the day, that is also what we know. I mean, Jammeh is right now in Equatorial Guinea. At the end of the day, he is sitting there, even before coming to court yet. I mean, Hussein Habre was in Dakar. After 25 years, he was sentenced to 30 years in jail, and so on. So there should be the Senegalese opposition or people should not accept any appeasement from Maki. Rather, they should demand that Maki upholds the law. Yeah, uphold the law. As we speak right now, there are cases filed in Senegal, I mean in France, as well as at the ICC for atrocities committed by Maki through his security forces and so on. And those ones are active. They've not been dropped. They've not been, taken out. All right. And I know in Senegal itself, independent bodies who are not political parties or even in the civil society, but intellectual groups, all right, are coming together to, document all of these things happening. And so for me, what is required is for the Senegalese people to just be steadfast, to be aware of their legal and political obligations according to the law, and make sure they don't allow Maki to provoke, them into, whatever will bring chaos to Senegal or, delay justice and accountability, unnecessarily. I was listening to all of you previously talking about all of this, the Gambia and Senegal and Africa. I mean, it's sad, and for me, that's my personal position right now. Not just the Gambia, but across Africa, that I reject the leadership that exists. We don't need a nice president, a God-fearing president, or that kind of president. We need a president and public officials who abide by the rule of law. All right, and we are a republic. Okay, we are a republic. In this republic, we the citizens elect a government based on our constitution, and in that constitution are stipulated our rights, all right, and our duties. And in that constitution are stipulated the obligations and the powers and the immunities, of the state, elected and appointed public officials to abide by, to serve us, the citizens. And so after decades, Gambia is claiming to hold its Independence Day in 2 days' time, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, you look at the life of the Gambian person, all right, from Banjul to Basse, the quality of life, our living conditions, our communities, our services, education, health, electricity, roads, and so on and so forth. And then you look at the taxes that are collected from Gambians. You look at the loans that are contracted in our name, the grants that our government receives in our name, and above all, the opportunities, the potentials, the resources of the country, all right, I mean, that we have that are available to the state to manage for our welfare. And then you look at the quality of life we live. Now, I think every self-respecting African, West African and Gambian or Senegalese need to begin to question, really, is this the life we deserve? Is this the kind of government, the kind of leadership that we deserve? I mean, I tell people, I look at, let's say, this national dialogue, all the things they are saying there. Okay, our natural resources.
Yeah.
Why would we have to come today to talk about our natural? Because we already have laws protecting our natural resources to be used for our welfare. And you let our land, our water, our air, our sea, I mean, to be plundered by, anyone, the highest bidder against us. All right. I mean, so at the end of the day, you and I have to begin to ask ourselves, I mean, how much do you value ourselves, really? So that we would have to live in this kind of situation, and then we have a leadership that is telling us these stories every day. I tell folks, look, I have been in development work in the Gambia for the past, 30 years almost. Right? And I can tell you, like the Gambia government, there is no project right now, because our government seems to operate by project and taxes. Okay.
Yeah.
There is no project in the Gambia today, whether it's in education or healthcare, or that I have not seen the same project 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. As a journalist and as a development worker in the Gambia, I have participated in, uncountable workshops, seminars, and, committee meetings at the State House, at Karaba Hotel, at Tendaba Camp. I mean, for projects, about food self-sufficiency, about reforestation, about, sports, about energy. And I have seen loan upon loan, grant upon grant from IDB, from ADB, from IMF, from World Bank, from government, from UK, from France, from EU, I mean, from the UNDP and FAO, WHO. I mean, I have seen it. And at the end of the day, millions of dollars, I come now to look at what obtains in the health sector. And you ask, so where did that money all go? In 2019, 18, 19, I was in the National Assembly. A bill was brought for a loan agreement for an agricultural project on youth and smallholder farmers. I remember talking to 5 MPs in the National Assembly, telling them, don't approve this loan agreement. I referred them, I said, go to Minister of Finance. There is a bulletin they call Aid Bulletin. In that Aid Bulletin, documenting the aid that the Gambia receives. From 2012 to 2015, you put together all the loans and grants received for agriculture. I said it amounted to $3.2 billion.
Wow.
$3.2 billion. And it is the same objective. Youth farmers, women farmers, smallholder farmers, rural farmers, that is it. But I said, so why 3.2 billion put in Gambia, the Gambian farming population? How much is the Gambian farming population? How many? 1 million people, 1.5 million people? You are giving 3.2 billion. You walk across the country, where are our potatoes, our onions, our cabbage, our rice? Who produces them? So I think maybe the Senegal situation, and I hope they really have a real serious national dialogue. I mean, I've not received my invitation, and the dialogue is over. So that
tomorrow is the final. Tomorrow is the
look at
one.
the kind of governments that they have.
Yeah,
the kind of leadership that we have, and I think we've been adjusting ourselves for far too long to these presidents to try to understand them. I remember when Jammeh was here, you talked to, Jammeh is now paranoid, but Jammeh, is trying to now, appease this or that is now, recognizing this, we are now growing what we eat and eating what we grow. I mean, they come with all those nonsense slogans. At the end of the day, we are still in negative one. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have a serious conversation, really, as West Africans, because look, the world as it is right now, the Israel-Palestine war, how that is impacting on the world. The Kuwait, Iraq, Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, the climate change issue, the incidence of terrorism, all right, the growing power of China and how they're invading Africa, not to mention the grip that the West has over Africa. Russians now, because of Russia, Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso have left, ECOWAS. So what is going to be the state of affairs in West Africa, in the Gambia or Senegal and Africa as a whole in the next 25 years? Where will we be, given where the world would be? All right, given the cutthroat, scorched earth policy of the Americans, of the EU, of the UK, of China, of Russia. And we sit here as this vast continent, the last bastion of, virgin resources, a non-nuclear, space in the world. Where do we stand? So Africans need to really think about our future. In 50 years' time, where would we be? Right now, UK, France, US, China, Russia, they all have bases, military bases across Africa. I mean, what does that mean for us? Not to mention there are companies that are across from Golden Lead in the Gambia here. You go across Western, Central, Eastern, North Africa, you'll find Russian, Chinese, American, British companies massively exploiting our resources thanks to our corrupt officials. You look at Golden Lead in the Gambia with the damage they are doing. Why? Simply because you have government officials, the government allowing foreign companies come and plunder our resources. Now you organize a national dialogue talking about securing our resources. As if you don't see Golden Lead, how they are damaging our resources. I mean, polluting our ocean and our land and depleting our fish stock. And you call a so-called national dialogue to go and talk about securing our resources. When you have legal constitutional responsibility to protect Gambia's natural resources, there are laws. We have our National Environmental, Management Act, giving you powers to manage our natural resources, to prevent pollution, to prevent, any destruction of our environment. But walk around the Gambia. I mean, our forest cover, you are degazetting forest. You've cut half of Monkey Park. I mean, in 5-10 years, Monkey Park will be swept all over will be completely wiped out. There'll be no Monkey Park. You go around our forest park, the Kamalo area, you destroy them. And you have the audacity to call us national dialogue to say we are going to discuss securing our natural resources. When you have already destroyed our natural resources. Look at the coast. You go and put where is the Gambia Tourism Board headquarters? On a bird sanctuary. Somewhere you are protected for nature, for to survive, for tourism, for everything. You go and damage it and build a building there, and you're talking about securing our national resources in the name of a national. What national dialogue? So I think all of this that is happening in Senegal, which I said Senegal is not the first. Gambia did it under Jammeh, and we are still continuing the same thing under Barrow. I mean, Bissau, this is what is happening. Marabio is corrupt like what in Sierra Leone. We cannot even talk about Ghana. I mean, Nana Addo is another stinking corrupt, incompetent government over down there. I mean, across. All right. So for how long? So I think West Africans need to sit down and really look at this, because at the end of the day, what is going to happen? Conflicts, and that is what has been happening in West Africa. And that is why terrorism is also growing, because certainly deprived youths, unemployed youths, poor youths, lacking hope, no opportunities in their countries. They became easy targets to be recruited into terrorism groups. Their own reports, ECOWAS reports have confirmed this. That with $100, Boko Haram, they have contracted youth in Nigeria with $100. Give you $100, you go and join Boko Haram. So, what is this? But I think really, not the political parties, not our politicians. I think this is a matter for the civil society and for the media to raise this revolution in West Africa. That look, we want democracy. We fought against colonialism to get democracy and good governance. And democracy is not just civil and political rights to have a right to come on this platform and say what I want to say, to protest and so on, But also it is about economic and social rights. That we don't want democracy only to go and vote and then go back to our homes without electricity, without water, without drainage, without jobs. And then we said we have voted for a government. And so we have democracy. That is what has been happening in Senegal, since Ablaye Wade. And I remember at Tango, when the change came, the first meetings we've had, I said, look, let us not seek the kind of democracy in Senegal. All right? A democracy where we just vote, we have the freedom to go to the media and say whatever, we can protest and so on. But at the end of the day, we are led by corrupt, incompetent, unethical leaders, public officials who plunder our wealth, and we live in poverty and deprivation and lack of services. And apparently that is the situation in each and every African country, and it has to stop. But we have to be impatient with these leaders. We don't have to accept their excuses. We don't have to create excuses for them. We don't have to second guess them, because Gambia, like Senegal, there is enough capacity. There is enough capacity in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, to understand how to manage. The capacity is there. There is enough resources in our hands to do what we are supposed to do. So they are just refusing to do what they know, to do what they can do for the people, for the benefit of the people. This is why a country like Gambia, you can have everything, mortgaged to Senegal. Our electricity is Senegal. Everything, Senegal is given to Senegal. I mean, go and check National Assembly reports, Ministry of Finance reports, NAWEC reports. How many loans and grants that NAWEC went to NAWEC for electrification, distribution, transmission? Go and check. You will be shocked at the billions of dollars for a country that the farthest distance is 400 kilometers. 400 kilometers. Farthest distance, 400 kilometers. 2 million people. You cannot provide even full electricity for coverage for even Greater Banjul area, Banjul to Abuko. You cannot even provide that. There are many communities between Banjul and Abuko that don't have electricity lines, not to mention water.
Yeah.
I mean, we will not even talk about Moraba.
Yeah.
So you don't have that. And yet you have billions of dollars. You go to Social Security and ask them how much money does NAWEC owe them? The people, the workers company, Social Security. You take workers' money and give it to NAWEC, and NAWEC does not pay back, and we don't get electricity service, and they increase tariffs. And we sit there. I mean, 400 kilometers, that is the length of the Gambia. A telephone line, an electricity line has to 400 kilometers, no mountains. You don't have to cut mountains or bridge huge rivers. No natural obstacles. Simple electricity to provide it 24/7. You cannot do it. You can't even get the lines. You want to build a line in Boraba, they tell you buy your own poles. And that is just in education, in energy. Take any sector and look at the services there. Availability, access, quality. You'll be shocked at how poor it is. Yes. And in each of those sectors, go and find out over the past 5 years how many loans and grants allocations have been made to that sector. And you are not serving 1 billion people. You are not serving a country the size of China. You are serving a country with a terrain like Peru with mountains all over the place, or Tibet. You're talking about a country that is flat. From end to end, flat. One river that cross across. That's all. What is so difficult to build a good road in that country? To get good telephone service, to get good internet service, to get good electricity service. What is difficult about that? And they have the knowledge, they have the skills. They are all trained in these European and American countries. They've seen advanced countries. So they don't even have to invent the wheel. We can go and learn from other people's experiences, and the knowledge is there. But even if they build a road, you wonder, I mean, who sat down to think about such a road?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we should organize the people's dialogue. You know, there's a national dialogue. When things go over, let us organize people's dialogue.
Yeah, and listening to the ordinary people.
The ordinary people. Let us organize a national people's dialogue at Buffer Zone, and we come and talk about it.
Let's do it.
Issues, yeah.
We'll do it. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Buffer Zone, Buffer Zone, let's look for other place.
No, Mari,
but you know, Fatou, on a serious note, like, you know, my talk about, you know, the people's dialogue. I remember last year when we had that dialogue for the independence at the Sadauda Keraba conference hall.
Sadauda, yes, yeah.
I asked the question, is this an geared towards the independence celebration? They said yes. I said, okay, it's independence only for the people of the Combos and Banjul, because all we see here, everybody is the one that speaks the English. Where is the local person from Kabada, you know, from Sare Biran, from Sare Pate, from Fulabantang, from Koina? You know, where are those people? Because those people also are part and parcel of this Gambia, and they are part and parcel of independence, and they should feel the independence celebration in whatever way we are celebrating independence. Where are they? This should have been decentralized. Yes, it's going to be costly, a lot of logistics to, you know, ferry everybody to one place, but let it be decentralized. It's about time that we in the Combos here will ride our cars and go and meet them in their farms, in their gardens, in the marketplace. Have this dialogue at the marketplace. Let them also have a sense of belonging. Let them also feel that, okay, we are part and parcel of this country, and they think about us when they sit on those tables. That has not happened yet. Another year has come. We are organizing another dialogue at the Sadauda Conference Center. Where are still those people? With all those thematic areas we're talking about, we have not seen the farmer being represented. We have not seen the market woman being represented. We have not seen the garden woman being represented, the fisherman. They are not being represented in everything we are talking about. The dialogue we had at the State House, nobody spoke and referenced this vulnerable group of people. And they are part and parcel of this country. They talked about, oh, we need to consider the woman. Consider the woman in what form? It was too vague. Let's consider the children. In what form? That's too vague.
A very condescending comment, like consider woman. Like
exactly. Consider woman. And that's what I said. I find it condescending. Condescending. Every time a man stands to talk, oh, you know what? We should empower the woman. Oh boy, I tell you guys, we are power in ourselves. We are powered. You need not empower us. We just need to manifest the power that is in us. We are tired of hearing that we empower the women, empower us. It is a favor they need to do to us. A favor they need to hand over to us. Till when? When?
And also, like, having the dialogues, for me, you know, my take on the dialogue that Barrow called for. You can't call for a dialogue when, in fact, there are a lot of things that were tabled before that you haven't recognized, right? We still don't have a constitutional reform, right? We still don't have a term limit. So what are we dialoguing for? What are we talking about, right? We have to go beyond just conversations. What are the things that will set up a system that doesn't discriminate, that doesn't know if it's Barrow or anybody else that comes into play to be the next president? Those are the things that we need to have in that country, not just mere conversations and dialogues, you know. And I think the opposition party, if they went to that dialogue yesterday, those are the things that they should have tabled, they should have talked about. It goes beyond conversations. What are the things that you will have in writing, in place for the system to work itself out without me having an opinion or you having an opinion, but we go back to the things which is the constitution that we all have to abide by, you know? So for me, the dialogue is, in a sense, it's meaningless, you know, because it's just,
go ahead.
It's just conversations and emotions instead of like practical things that we see on a piece of paper, that applies to everybody. So I as much as people are saying, oh, it's great for dialogue, we forget so quickly as people, the TRC. Look at how much money was put into that. What happened to that, right? The white paper, all of these things. So what are we having a dialogue for when, in fact, there are a lot of things that should have been implemented that still are not implemented? So what are we talking about? We're just talking to save face. So it doesn't make sense to me. We forget so quickly. Just 3-4 months ago, we were sitting here on Facebook fighting for people to be released from jail because I don't know about it, the president of the Gambia said stuff that actually probably made the IGP to arrest people. That if you say things against me, it doesn't matter which judge decided to release you, I will make sure that you are jailed again. This was 4 months ago. Did we forget about that? What changed between this 4 months period? What changed? I'm not saying that we don't forget or we don't move on, but we have to address a lot of these things. And I think that because of the people that really put a lot of pressure the last 2023 on Adam Barrow and his government, for them to know that people are watching, we're not folding our arms and watching and just look at them to do whatever they want to do. That's one of the reasons. Obviously, there's chaos in Senegal and other things. That could be one of the reasons why he's calling for a national dialogue. Right? But we are saying he must respect the things that we've already put in place for them to implement, and they haven't.
I mean, and I think one of the things, I said this on my show last week when the president himself, I said we should see action first before we even go to the dialogue table. When the president made a statement and said, we know their opposition. And we have seen how many times they have sacked people because they believe they are from a certain political party, or they will not hire people because they are from a certain political party. They will do certain people like Adi Conte, that what they have done to him paralyze his business because they believe he's from a different political party. So if the president is showing that, and telling these people this is the way to do, if he truly believes in dialogue, those are the things he should address first.
Yeah.
If the president truly believes in dialogue, he should try to work with councils. Yeah. Because they are opposition council doesn't mean they are not serving their people. If you
show me in action.
Let's see that first. Let's see the actions first. If the president truly believes in dialogue, he will not be throwing serious jabs. I understand politicians can say things to each other, but not to the point where we will say things that are really like insults to other leaders. So for me, I don't see the point of this dialogue. And everybody went there and read a statement for 3 minutes. If they had gone back into a room and just digest on those points that were raised and agree on something and have it on paper, I would even say maybe that. But Halifa said this, Bibi Dabo said this, Mama Kande said this, and they said, thank you very much, and let's have a photo up. I think for me, I said, maybe this is something we're doing just to appease the international community, just to get some funding and all of that. That's what I believe. But finally, guys, now, Mali said something, what kind of, the Senegalese people, this is like more of like the last stretch. And a lot of people believe the Senegalese people are fighting a good fight, and they are putting a lot of pressure on President Macky Sall. Yesterday, something very interesting. I saw the TV host, their association. They came out and had a state press conference. The families of the political prisoners and all those people also. But the journalists association in particular, that was very interesting for me. When they came out, they said, look, they don't want President Macky Sall to interfere with their constitution. And they said the reason why they're out, number one, they are citizens first before, becoming a journalist. But they also believe they are the most vulnerable when conflict happens. And they're coming out and speaking up. What we have seen who have been Macky Sall, they're all isolating him now. What tomorrow they have a demonstration, it's supposed to be a big demonstration. Macky started releasing people. At this final stretch, finally from everybody, what kind of force do you think the Senegalese people should continue to put on President Macky Sall to stop him from what he wants to implement. So let's start with Nene, then we go to Duka and Madi. Are you hearing Nene, or is it me?
No, we can hear
Nene,
her.
we
She's
can
gone.
hear you. Okay. Let's have Juka before Nene comes in. Juka, go ahead. Nene,
Yeah, you know, I can't say all the things that I'm thinking strategically they have to do in order for them to push Maki out, because like I always tell them, they're at the last hours of this fight, literally.
Yeah.
Maki is holding on by a piece of thread, like he knows it. His people know it, and like you said, that's why today he was probably starting to release a lot of these political prisoners. And you know, when I saw there was a guy, his name is Laminyas, on TikTok, of course, narrating how when they arrested him, how they were shaving his head and pouring vinegar on his head and telling him to say that he is with Maki now and not with Usman Sonko on video, right?
Yeah.
And then they will release him. They're not going to arrest him. That just goes to show me again to emphasize what we are talking about as Maki being a dictator. Now, dictators are very strategic. When they are losing, they don't want to lose. They will come up with every idea in the book to make sure that people push back, and then they can continue to emphasize and implement their powers, right? And I think that's why he's starting to release people. Now, Senegalese people should not be fooled. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. They should not be fooled, and they should make sure that they have their eyes on the prize, meaning they should continue to protest. They should continue to speak up. They should continue to, whatever strategies they were doing that's making Maki change gear or change his tone, they should continue pushing on that. That's it. Whatever strategies, and so whatever strategies that they were doing, lépp loo xam ne ñu ko doon def pour Macky dem te ñu egsi fii pour Macky dellu gannaaw dañ am pour continuer ko lu munti doon nag ñoom ñooy xam seen bugg lan lañ amee lan lañ doon def ak lan lañ doon implement pour Macky dem nañ continuer yëpp buñ dellu gannaaw si benn boor, because suñ delloo gannaaw rek, because Macky loolu la bëgg. Macky wants them to sit back. If they sit back, suñ delloo gannaaw loolu mooy Macky dafay engagé waat parce que loolu la lañ def ay yooni yoon. This is not the first time. So if I were the Senegalese people, they must continue to emphasize li nga xam ne loolu lañ nekkoon di def ba Macky commencé di dellu gannaaw nañ ko continuer rek foofu rek lañ ko mën a téye suñ delloo gannaaw rek du baax si ñoom parce que su buuratee rek daf la ñuy mun. Yeah.
Nene, as a patriot myself who supports Usman Sonko openly, you know, my sister and I, we always say this. Anytime there's a victory lap, rek xamal ne Macky bu ñëwee rek bu ñëwaatee rek boobu daf dee nekk a total destruction. And I'm sitting here celebrating, seeing all these faces they are releasing, but I'm thinking, what is the next plan? Do you think the Senegalese should be cautious about what he's doing today? He's releasing them. He's releasing all of their main people. Should they be cautious? What should be the way forward for them going forward?
Fatou, they should be very super cautious, because Macky is dangerous. Macky is like a venom. Macky is lethal, honestly. And they should be super cautious and not take these things that he's doing right now for granted. All of that when you could did it and digerut koku wawam jaruta japa. Te Macky did it ak wawam yepa em. Se balance the neka. It swings like a pendulum. So jaruta ulu. So they should be super cautious. Like suñu aba ay bot. Some percent no pay send gana yep def ko for just pour watch ko what steps he's going to, because Macky look different is a calculated attempt. There is an ulterior motive, it's an agenda. And they should be super cautious. But then again, before I even move on, see, the journalists have equally suffered. The genuine ones who were really trying to report the facts and things as it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by that, they have lost so much. They have been jailed. Their times were wasted and everything else. And but I did not see the overwhelming and outpouring of solidarity from journalists outside of Senegal, even within Senegal. You have a lot of journalists who felt that it's not to their interest for them to solidarity. You understand? And with all they're doing right now, well, yeah, it's good, but a little bit too late. They should have done it from when the first person was a victim to avoid another person becoming a victim, another person, until you have, so many being victim, being battered, beaten, brutalized, and all that. I mean, at the end of the day, when you are living in a glass house, don't throw stones. Avoid throwing stones, because these things can happen. These things can happen to anybody. Another administration can come in and they also have their allies, and anybody else that is not within the cabal, they consider you an opposition, and then they look at you with a side eye. So anybody can fall a victim. Motali or rek moy taxaw ci dega, wax dega, doxal dega, jubal dega. Lolu rek or lolu mo la mëna garantie ne dina san sa taxaway degirna. Both Senegal, in the Gambia, and across the sub-region and in the entire world. It's supposed to be a family. It's a journalism thing. You all are supposed to be one. Why this segregation, ki fila boka, be pare boron ñaari lami ñi nga xamne they speak from both sides of their tongue. Suñ noppé ñu rafle, ku ñu wax ne rek xam nga kuy odo lami bo noppé rafle, it's their interest. That should be avoided. You all should be one and stand in solidarity with each other. Apart from the Kerr Fatou, I did not see any media house put up a platform. I mean, why put up a platform, a panel to discuss specifically the issue that is happening in Senegal. Apart from reporting the things that they pick up from Facebook, the things that they pick up from statuses and stuff like that. That's what they have been saying. Nothing as serious as, let's talk about what is happening in Senegal. What can we do? Who can we contact? How can we add our voices to the existing voices, the existing campaign, to make sure that we also amplify the cries of the people, so that Senegalese can be salvaged, the situation can be salvaged, the situation can be addressed. It's hypocrisy, it's self-centeredness, and it's interest-based. It's not guaranteed. It doesn't last long. Now, as the Senegalese people now, man, I feel ne Senegalese dom askani Senegal ñom ñoo am pour now choose fiñ tollu ni ak liñ dem turu yépp dañ bëgg continuer di dundal li ñuy dundal ni mu gëna metti ndax dañ bëgg taxawal suñ tanka temne fu ne doyna fi lay am te continuer lu mel ni du continuer te duñ ko musa dundaat ba faw, because amna nu ñuy def keneen ku ñëwaatin saa yu nekk dina fàttaleku ñoom naka lañ adressé seen situation, dina si bàyyi xel, parce que dina xam ne doomi Sénégalais yi pare nañ pour wax ne kenn duñu nootaat, kenn duñu jaay doole, kenn du nangu li nga xam ne mooy suñ aha ak suñ yelleef aaye ñu ko ngir own selfish interest am, ngir own bugaam ak ngir own gom yàllaam ak ñàkk doyloom. Suñ taxawee loolu mun nañ ko def te fo naa ne foofu la waay gaay war a toll. Def nañ nag lu bari liñ def man Gambia fii gisuma kenn ku ko fay def te gisuma doomi Gambia di taxaw di xeexee nu mel noonu. So ngàcce ngaalaama waaye nañ ko continuer, buñ sonna buñ tàyyi buñ xaadi te buñ dellu gannaaw, parce que Macky dafa sonna, Macky dafa tàyyi. Boo gisee Macky def dafa tàyyi parce que Macky ku xiis xol la, amul xoli nit. So suñ ko bàyyee rek dafa continuer def li moo def, waaye fiñ jàppa buñ ragal. Gis nga dee benn rek la. Li ñuy wax ne gis nga alof daf ne ñi dee yàkkamti taxu leen a dem, te ñun mi fi des malanka bàyyiwuñu fi. Bu neexoon yàlla tey mu yóbbu ñi. Macky bu ko neexoon tey mu eewu suba ñu taage ko. So na xam ne yàlla ko uppa doole te buñ ragal, parce que fii dee benn rek la, kenn du dee del si waatin na ñañ doxal digga taxaw si digga. Li ñuy def man kontaan naa si te I am in solidarity with the Senegalese people to say no to dictatorship, to say no to Macky Sall and his ways and his cabal. Ni ma ko waxee di ko waxaat rek, kuy dimbale Macky Sall bañ naa la sip naa la, kuy dooleel Macky Sall bañ naa la sip naa la, kuy noot askan du askani Sénégal bépp doomi aadama as an activist bañ naa la sip naa la.
Jërëjëf Nene Mari. Finally, I don't know what we can add on that. Finally,
you have some very fiery ladies here, so
yeah,
I'm like, okay, we need them in the leadership. Well, I mean, I think I just agree with the points Nene and Yuka are saying. For the Senegalese to stand steadfast, uphold the law.
Do you think also, for the interest of Senegal, would it be right for Ousmane Sonko to say, okay, I have, for the past, the longest said, no, I don't want to dialogue with you, but at this point, for the interest of democracy, for the interest of this country, for peace to reign, maybe just have a conversation with Macky Sall and see what is there to look at. Do you think this man should do that at this point?
No, I mean, I don't think he should do that. I mean, I think, so that is the thing I talked about, we second guessing or excusing or, adjusting to our leaders when they do things. But it's just dialogue, it's just a conversation. Just have a conversation and just hear. Because these things are clear. Senegal has a law. And, so we shouldn't have got to this point. What Macky did on February 3rd to postpone the election, he has absolutely no powers, according to the Senegalese constitution, to do that. So, therefore, to accommodate him means aiding and abetting the disregard of the constitution. So, what Sonko and I hope all the Senegalese leaders should do is to stand on the constitution to say, Macky, go back to the constitution. This country doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to you alone or me alone. It belongs to all of us, but we are governed by a constitution, not by our whims and caprices, our individual ideas. So I think that is what Sonko needs to insist upon, and all Senegalese. All right, and I'm sure if it gets to the crunch, Macky will realize that at the end of the day, he's in a position of weakness. I mean, imagine Jammeh. Few days, we got to 2019, January 19, Barrow went to swear in Dakar. Now, imagine and look at what Jammeh was saying. If Barrow said, okay, let me talk to him and hear him. The moment you do that, you are creating now a space for him to survive, to maneuver, to seek the next step. But one could have said at that time on the 17th, on the 18th, but Jammeh has not still moved, then why don't we talk to him? But when Barrow went to swear in Dakar, it took how many days? 3-4 days before Jammeh was kicked out. All right? Because the moment he swore in Dakar, you have delegitimized the man sitting there, Jammeh. And, as Khalifa Salah said, by 19th January, Jammeh was a rebel. So it is the same thing by, of course, April 2nd, Macky will become a rebel, but then that is provided you don't undermine February 25th. You don't join him undermine February 25th by talking to him. All right? So, because what conversation should they have? They should not have any conversation about postponing the election. They should not have any conversation about, amnesty. It is very obvious that the people incarcerated are, arbitrarily arrested. They have a right to protest. All right. So what should the opposition demand is justice and accountability. That the law. Those who committed crimes, officers, security officers who committed, torture, who arrested, who detained, who killed, should be identified and brought to justice. And Macky himself to realize that this is what the Constitution says. So if 25th is faulted, we missed 25th, then he needs to know that he should be held to account for violating the Constitution, and that's treason, as Duka said. All right? And it is just surprising on the other side. Even I know why Macky is doing this, because he wants to protect his wealth and his skin. But on the other hand, also, you should have known that this is not a project you can succeed with. Because you were there in the Gambia case. You were in the forefront. You were in Senegal under your government. You dealt with his and Habre. You saw the case of Kampuare. All right, and so on and so forth. So you should know, as president of Senegal, that and knowing the Senegalese population, the vibrant, strong media and civil society and political parties, intellectuals of Senegal. Because you saw this game played out when he himself played a leading part in 2012. So why couldn't Macky advise himself that no, this is not a project I can succeed with? No. So Macky most likely, is going to end in prison.
Amadi, the arrogance of these leaders, when I hear him say, I am not going to leave this country in chaos, he's acting like he is the owner of Senegalese property. I'm thinking, is this dude well? Does he understand that this is not his property? He's saying, I'm not going to leave this country in the, and there was this particular journalist, a French journalist who met Macky on Friday and was on TV to say, Macky told him, I'm postponing the election because I don't want the Islamists to win. At this point, for him, it's like his property. He wants to decide who wins, who wants to decide who he hands over to. He wants to make sure the peace is his duty to. Your mandate is over. By 2nd April, you don't have a mandate anymore.
Yeah, they say we don't learn from history, but I think that is more appropriate for our leaders. All right, they don't learn from history, but also not history from their fellow leaders, misfortune, but they don't learn from history from the people around those fellow leaders. So Macky, like Jammeh, I'm sure has his so-called advisors in the State House, in the Parliament, in the society, in the security, who are telling him, we are standing with you, Macky. We don't worry, we will be here. And then it gets to the crunch, you realize they all go. Now, some of the wise ones, you've seen some of the ministers, they've resigned. That wouldn't still send him a signal that, look, this is not going to last. I need to go. But he is listening to those stooges around, those surrogates around who are telling him, we have your back. And they don't have his back. Because even if he falls down with all of them like Jammeh, eventually when Justice Day comes, the day of reckoning comes, they are going to stand in front of a truth commission or in court and point the finger at him. And so our leaders, our presidents continue. I think I should stop saying our leaders because those people are not leaders. Let me just say presidents. Right? They are not leaders. Leader is something else. So our presidents, need to learn, at least for your own interest, really, what path should I take? And not to sit there listening to stooges and surrogates, people around who are, facilitating, encouraging you to do all of these things. At the end of the day, they will abandon you at the last minute, or when you really fall with them, when the day of reckoning comes, they will stand at the platform and point fingers at you. And Jammeh now, I'm sure he's enjoying that, realization now that at the end of the day, everybody has abandoned him. So I hope Macky, I don't know, advise himself. I wouldn't say anyone advises him, but he advised himself to realize what to do, But for the Senegalese, I guess, they should stand firm, and demand the upholding of the law. Yes, I think they should stand on that.
I say Makisa, Naka Madi, quickly before you go.
I'm calling you Madi.
Madi, honestly, never see Makisa. Madi, before you go, we've talked about the eminent silence from the Gambia government and other stakeholders within the Gambia. But I also haven't seen the civil society in this country to come out, openly to speak, about the issues going on in Senegal. And what I expect them to do.
They issued a statement. Tango issued a statement. It was a
Tango issued a statement. I haven't seen it. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it. But then again, if I am not seeing the statement, is issuing a statement, should it stop at that? Because Senegal, they were at every platform that cared to listen to them, to speak and amplify our voices, to talk about the situation in the Gambia. And everybody was doing that. And the civil society, and Madi can attest to that, the civil society, the Yenamar, and all those other civil society organizations, they were visibly out there doing what they could, online, on social media, in person, on the televisions. So again, putting pressure, I think we need to see more on that side as well. We really need to see more. I mean,
I remember, in fact, there's this Senegalese rapper, Human. had a song, Everything Under Gambian Skies,
Mm-hmm.
At that time, and of course, Yenamar, we've been in touch, and
Rado.
on the radio, TV stations, they had conversations about Gambia. In fact, invited some Gambia. I remember Nyang Jai was one time.
All the platform, Nyang Jai was there, Salutal,
and today, like,
specials,
as I was saying, we were in a West Africa Civil Society special session on Senegal, and that is the point I made, that I would have expected that in each country, the civil society organize a protest in front of the Senegalese embassy in their country to demand that Macky Sall, abide by the constitution and make sure there's election on February 25th. But because for me, this is how I think we are going to change the narrative in West Africa. You cannot leave it in the hands of ECOWAS or the governments. Our civil society need to get into action. So imagine Gambian civil society, Guinea-Bissau, Mali, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Ghana, civil society mobilizing in front of the Senegalese embassy, in their countries, in their capitals, with the same message. But also their media houses, like what Kerr Fatou is doing right now, holding forums, bringing Senegalese experts, Senegalese people to talk up to Gambians, to Malians, to Guineans, to Nigerians about what the situation is in Senegal. And because we have to West Africanize this situation and to create greater impact. And so my sadness really is that our civil society and media in general have only focused on their countries and not engaged, in each other's countries as much as we should. But of course, Senegalese civil society, one thing is noticeable about them, at least a number of organizations or individuals, they've been really vocal on West African issues. I remember on the Guinea thing also, when it came up, Yenamar and people like Aleutin were really active in dealing with the Guinea coup at the time when it happened. So I hope, Gambia, because when the Gambia case happened in 2016, it wasn't just Yenamar, but even the Conga, that is the Tango equivalent in Senegal, but other groups in Senegal also issued statements about the Gambia. So one would have thought our various civil society organizations should all speak up to what is happening. Given our relationship, our experience with Senegal, especially at a very huge moment of need.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Anyone has anything to say before we close? If we have, we are running out of time now. Anybody has anything, Juga?
Thank you.
The fight continues.
Keep up the good work, and
the fight continues, and we should definitely come back. We'll observe what happens.
People's dialogue. People's dialogue.
I will make sure we have that. The people's dialogue. I'll work on that. That's an assignment. I'll work on that.
Let's have people's dialogue, but not at buffer zone. Please, not at buffer zone.
All right, no problem. No problem.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Been great with you guys.
We'll follow what happens tomorrow at the protest, and definitely we'll come back.
Have a nice evening, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you,
Nene.
Fatou.
Thank you, Madi. Thank you, Juka. And until we come your way next week again with another show, good night to you all. See you again. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Airport Residency Estate is a gated community located in Old Yundum, proudly developed by Swami India, perfect for all looking for a quiet life with luxury amenities within an enclosed setting. When talking about the benefits of living in a gated community, safety and security is top on the list. They allow extra privacy, take away the hustle of unwelcome solicitors, and create a safe haven for children to play in a trusted environment without traffic or speedy vehicles. A great sense of community, developed through the meeting at a controlled communal leisure facilities, offering an integrated lifestyle. A green environment and well-managed communal areas are keys to higher home standards, elevated quality of life, and better property value, should you consider home reinvestment in the future. Added to all is the location, just next to the airport and reconstructed main road, yet tucked in the tranquility of nature. Our purpose is one, your satisfaction. Contact us. Let us help you build your dream home in the Gambia.
We are happy to announce the launch of our new logo. We have evolved since our incorporation in 1997, and it is time to refresh our new look to reflect who we are today. Before I reveal our new look, however, walk with me while I take you through our journey of the last 25 years. Trust Bank was incorporated on July 3rd, 1997 and began operations on October 1st, 1997. Following the collapse of the parent company of its predecessor, Meridian, the CBG stepped in and recapitalized the bank and held the shares in trust, thus the name Trust Bank. In 1999, and partners. So, we remain true to who we have always been. As we look forward to greater achievements, we are rebranding to reflect who we are today and the future that we inspire. Our new logo has been designed to visually demonstrate our Gambian heritage and the sophisticated nature of the bank. We are moving away from the navy and gold-colored parallelogram-shaped logo to our baobab tree with a rising sun in the background. The striking outline of a baobab tree at sunrise is a familiar sight to anyone who has spent time in the Gambia. Our new logo and visual identity are inspired by our core values and spirit of being a pioneer in providing a unique banking experience. It is a completely new look that better matches the transformation we have made as a company. But we remain your trust bank. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor to present to you our new logo and corporate identity.
Every day is a new opportunity to make sure our first impressions are always our best and to see possibilities on the horizon, to make our facilities and services more